Okay, we'll get started, and then as people come in, we'll let them into the room. So I'd just like to say hello, everyone. Welcome to the Diversity and Women in Tech event series. My name is Marcus Webb, and I'm the Economic Inclusion Fellow at Center State CEO, and I also will be moderating tonight's event. Before we get started, I wanted to say thank you to our sponsor, JP Morgan Chase, for sponsoring this event and really sponsoring a lot of the work that we're doing around trying to diversify that tech industry here in Central New York. Sorry, let me let a few people in. I have a few of my colleagues on this call, and they can attest to the fact that we do a lot of work around trying to, make sure we are trying to diversify tech here in Central New York. And we're just happy that we have this JP Morgan Chase grant to actually fund the work that we're doing around tech. So once again, thank you, JP Morgan Chase, for sponsoring this event. Just a few quick ground rules before we get started. All participants should be muted during the first half of the event. Please don't come off mute until we open up the floor for questions, towards the second half. The session will be recorded. It's actually being recorded right now. It will be made public on the Center State CEO website. So if you really enjoyed the event and you wanted to return back and watch it again, you can go to the Center State CEO website, or you can refer people to the page as well. The chat will be open for any comments or questions you have for our speaker during the event. But once again, you'll be able to come off mute and ask those questions once we get to the Q&A. And lastly, there will be a short survey towards the end of the event just to get your feedback to make any changes that we may need to make going forward for future programming. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our amazing speaker, Maya Anthony. Maya is the project engineer at Fairbanks Morse. And I'd also like to take the time to read you her bio. Let me admit some. So Maya Anthony is currently employed at Fairbanks Morse LLC, a diesel engine manufacturing company located in Bleulet, Wisconsin. She has been at Fairbanks for 5 years in various roles. In her current role as project engineer, Maya is responsible for reviewing, drawing, creating maintenance kits, and managing parts shipments to various locations where a company's engines are located. Maya is originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and she received her undergraduate degree in Biosystems engineers at University of Kentucky. And yes, she is a diehard Wildcats fan. She is currently pursuing her master's degree in business administration with a focus in project management. Maya is fairly new to Syracuse, having lived here for 2 years now. She's recently moved from Rockford, Illinois, so she is used to the bitter cold, but she still adjusting to all the snow. When she is not working on her graduate degree, Maya enjoys dancing, playing with her dog, being treasurer for the local Syracuse alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Inc., and trying new restaurants around the city with her husband. Maya, did you have anything that you wanted to say to the group before we get started?
I guess just hi, and thank you for that introduction, Marcus. That made me sound great.
Of course. All right, so just wanted to start off with a quick Q&A just to get going. Being that you recently moved here to Syracuse, can you tell us a little bit about how it is living in Syracuse?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like it'll be 3 years in April. So we're getting closer to that 3-year mark. But I feel like I've met the most amazing people here in Syracuse. I just wish I could move it to a warmer place or bring some sunshine, because I need my sunshine. But it's been different living here. I will say that, because I do work fully remote. I did before the pandemic. So it was a little bit harder to meet people at first, but once I did start to meet people, I feel like Syracuse is kind of a gem for, like, I've met just so many unique and different and talented people once moving out here.
I agree. Did you always have an interest in technology?
I had a lot of interests, and I still do. So I guess when I was younger, it was hard to really formulate exactly what my interests were. They translated into like the career that I have now. But I'll say that I've always been interested in science and math and taking things apart and putting things back together, and mostly just problem solving. That's kind of the root of what I've always liked to do. And I feel like that equates a lot to tech and, specifically in tech and engineering, problem solving. Yeah.
When did that interest start for, problem solving and, all of those aspects you just mentioned? When did that start?
Oh man. I remember when I was really little, we had one of those like old school TV. I have my parents are a little bit older, so we had one of those old school TVs that had the antennas on the top, and it was in black and white. And I remember like trying to, maneuver and fix the antennas so that we could get the signal that we needed to get on our, on the TV. So that's like the first thing I remember, just always having to adjust that. And for some people, you would find that annoying, but I got a little thrill out of it. And then another thing that I remember early on is we took a lot of trips down to South Carolina, where my family is, and my dad packing the car. And him and I will always fight because to this day, I think I pack the car way better than he does. But just figuring out like the best way to pack the car, just that's a little bit of like problem solving too. So that's something that that I can remember from, early on that I've always enjoyed doing.
I see. So this kind of goes into this next question. What was it like studying biosystem engineering at the University of Kentucky?
Oh, so I feel like biosystems is a very unknown, I guess, discipline of engineering. So it kind of marries a lot of the other engineering disciplines. So when I was an undergrad, I took classes like heat transfer. I took classes like civil engineering classes, mechanical engineering classes. So it was a lot of different moving pieces from the different disciplines that I got to experience in biosystems. And then on top of it, you throw the science on top of it as well. So although I don't work in like a field that's, involved with a biosystems degree, that it opened my eyes to all the different like areas of work that I could do as an engineer, which I think was really helpful for me, especially having so many different interests. It made me really see that, okay, this engineering degree that I'm getting now can be used in so many different ways. And I think that is one thing that I didn't realize going into the degree. Sorry, my dog is barking right now. But that's one thing that I didn't realize going into the degree, and it's something that was definitely helpful learning.
Was it sounds difficult. Was it difficult? Like a difficult major?
Yeah, well, so I think all engineering is difficult, mostly because I am not the best at math. So it's always challenging for me. And I'm not, the best like tech savvy person, but it's always something that I find interesting and I am going to work at. So for that reason, I feel like it was difficult, and the fact of it was very time demanding, and there was a lot of different sorry, my dog is distracting me. I don't know if y'all can hear him or not, but just a lot of different pools in different areas. So like tests were difficult, and just as an undergrad I was working as well, so that made it difficult as far as like time, and I was also very involved in school too. So
I see.
Yeah.
Why would you say you didn't go into that field of work? Was there a specific reason why you didn't want to
Yes,
go into that work?
there is. So I went through the biosystems track, and there's a couple of different tracks in biosystems. So I chose the food and bioprocessing track. And originally I wanted to go into more food engineering, and I had an internship at Jess, the peanut butter company. It's based in Lexington, Kentucky. And although I loved my internship and I loved like working there and it was great, and I still love peanut butter to this day, I realized that I just like to eat food and I didn't really want to work in the field of food. So having that experience was really helpful for me. But I feel like it did come late for me because that was my senior year. I wrapped up with that internship. And so I went into like, the later part of my senior year, like, whoa, like crap, I've been working towards this, and now I'm kind of at this crossroads where I really got to figure out what I'm going to do after I graduate, because I came to this conclusion like, yes, this is a great field, but this is not necessarily where I want to work and what I want to do. So it was helpful in that journey. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about where you did end up working. Can you tell me a little bit about first, what is Fairbanks Morse?
Yeah, so we're a diesel engine manufacturing company, and we manufacture these engines for the Navy, for the Marines, nuclear power plants, backup generation power. So we do a lot of government contract work, and specifically what I do at Fairbanks is I do a lot on the government side. So a lot of the projects that I'm working on are nuclear power plant projects that are it kind of depends on the day. So a lot of the things I'm doing now are on the government side of things.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Can you go a little bit further into your role at Fairbanks Morse? Like
Yeah,
what exactly that you do?
sure. So as a project engineer, one of the main things that I'm working on now is getting parts to our field technicians.
Okay.
So we have these engines at these power plants and they have to commission these engines, right? So there are things that go wrong. There are things that we're still in the process of sometimes manufacturing these engines too. So there are what we call like a retrofit kit. So we want to retrofit the engine in the field to match what it should be. So it's a matter of making sure that we're sending the right parts and creating these kits of parts that go onto the engine to essentially function the way that we want it to function.
Mm.
So it's a lot of coordination that I deal with. I do a lot of drawing reviews to make sure that we're sending the correct parts. A lot of scheduling to make sure that parts are delivered when they need to be scheduled, and then just a lot of listening to our field technicians of, this XYZ is going wrong. How can we fix it? And it's not just myself, but we've got a team of people that's figuring out, okay, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to execute it.
Okay. What were some of your previous roles? I've seen in your bio that you said you had a lot of previous roles. What are a few?
Yeah, so when I originally got to my company, I was a product engineer. So we have a lot of different engine lines, and I worked on one specific product, which is just that's how we categorize it. So I worked on one specific product. I did a lot of drawing updates, a lot of drawing revisions. And I didn't mention this, but Fairbanks is an older company. So a lot of what I was doing too was, if there was an older drawing, creating a newer version of that drawing. So that was kind of like a lot of the things that I did initially. I was a quality engineer as well. So in that role, I was on the shop floor a lot. So it was more of the production side of things. So if things were, still in the same kind of realm of what I'm doing now, but if things were broken, if things had to be repaired, doing evaluations on those parts, doing a little bit of analysis on parts as well. So that was my most previous role. And then here now, I'm on the inside of things. So it's I've been kind of in all the different stages. So the drawing side, the production side, and now I'm on the commissioning side towards where the end of our engines are.
Okay. Interesting. How has COVID affected, the way that you're working, or was this a remote job like the entire time, or has COVID have you working from home?
Yeah, so when I moved out here, I worked it out with my company so that I could work remote. And usually I travel back to my plant once a month. So I haven't been back since February of this year. But before that, I was remote. When I was living in Beloit, Wisconsin, I was in the facility. And that's when I was a quality engineer. So I was in the facility full time. But my husband actually got a job here in Syracuse, and that's what brought us out here. And I wasn't technically ready to leave my company, so we worked it out that I could work remote. So that's that's kind of how. I mean, it hasn't really affected my day to day. We've had a couple of instances at work with some COVID-related things, but it's more so a scheduling thing. But outside of that, I was working remote prior to, so it was an easier transition for me.
Okay. What would you say are some everyday challenges in your current role as a project engineer?
communication is essential in every line of work. And I feel like because the project that I'm working on right now is very time sensitive. And so, with time sensitivity, there comes that challenge of, making sure you're communicating effectively. And so I feel like that is one of the biggest challenges that I'm dealing with, like today, currently, is just making sure that, either what I'm saying or what I'm listening to and understanding accurately depicts the issue, the problem. So, and especially since, time is not on our side
Definitely.
these days. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is more of a question just to get like your perspective on something. Do you think that diversity is important in tech related fields? If
Oh,
so,
yes.
then okay. Why?
Well, I say that because just as a Black woman, I know that I look at things differently,
Yep.
and I internalize things differently, and we as women in general internalize things differently, and just as individuals, we see things so differently from our individual experiences in life. And so that's why, I mean, especially in the tech industry and any type of innovative and creative industry, diversity is a must.
Mhm.
If you want to be able to execute as efficiently and as well as you want to, I feel like it's a necessity to have diversity in your in your design areas, in your implementation areas, in your execution areas, because as much as we are diverse, even in like the way that we look and the way that we think is so diverse too. And I think that's something that some companies miss sometimes is, you can hire, all these people of color and hire like different genders and things like that. But I think it's also really important to understand who you're hiring too, because you could have a group of diverse looking people, but also not have a diverse like mindset on a certain subject, which I think is really, really important for the tech industry. But inherently, I think as a Black female, I just think differently on a lot of things, and I just have a whole different world perspective, and women in general do. And I think it's unfortunate that we have this idea that engineers look a certain way, or people just in STEM fields look a certain way, because I feel like we could be doing a lot more if we have this diversity, in these fields. So,
Definitely.
yeah.
That's well said. Couldn't say it better myself. How do you think we can get more, young, diverse individuals interested in careers, and STEM or in tech, and not even well. Let's start with that. How do you think we can get them interested in these type of fields?
Yeah, so I think exposure for one, and also STEM education. So like as a kid, I didn't really know what engineering was. Even when I was going to school, I didn't really all the way know what engineering was, to be 100% real. I just knew it was like problem solving, and I like math. I'm pretty good at math. I'm pretty good at science. Like, cool, this is what I'm going to try to do. So I think the exposure to what a working job looks like in a STEM field, and exposing young people to like people that look like them. That, I mean, for me, that's so helpful. Like that was like another eye opener that I had too when I was younger. I went to a STEM camp, or it was an engineering camp, excuse me, and I saw it was women. It was all women, and it was women of all these different backgrounds and ethnicities, and they made like the things that I inherently liked cool and fun, and that isn't always like portrayed in like a classroom setting. And I know today schools are a lot more progressive with that, but man, I feel like if kids get that type of education and type of exposure at a younger age, and they get told that the sky is the limit, yeah, I think that would be super helpful.
Definitely. How do we be intentional about finding ways to get those kids who are interested opportunities from your perspective? Like, how do you think we would go about doing that as a
Yeah.
community?
So if there are already programs in place, I think making sure that we have maybe even just having like a a bank of like internships and real exposure. And then, talks like this and having these conversations of who are you on a day-to-day basis? Like, yes, you are a Black female engineer, but like, what's your personality? Like, what do you like to do? Like, how did you come to be? And I feel like those types of things, if we've already got that kind of database of people that are interested, getting them exposed and really, in the hands-on way would be helpful.
Okay. All right, so I read in your bio that you are pursuing your MBA, but me and you had a conversation prior to the event. You said you just received your MBA. What made you want to go back to school to pursue that?
Just more knowledge. I like to learn. I'd say that I'm sometimes a nerd, but so I feel like a lot of the things that I am really interested in are, I love like looking at a high level of things and then really like digging down to the details and seeing the process like from one end to the other. And I realized that kind of translates to project management. So my degree is an MBA with a focus in project management. And I just felt like being able to get that, that degree and being able to get additional knowledge on those different subjects within a business degree would help me in, just my future as far as like in my company and then also outside of my company as well.
I see. Have you seen those crossovers between, in the classroom and as a project engineer?
Yes, I have. I've had those aha moments where, where I'm in a meeting or something and I'm like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Okay. So stuff like that is nice because it's that, it's reassuring that, my time is actually well worth it. So to go through the schooling.
Okay. Well, congratulations on graduating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. What advice would you have for others who want to set off in a similar path as you in your career or as a whole in general?
I would say take the leap of faith, because for me, I feel like I'm a person that, although I do take these leaps of faith, I get scared. And sometimes I just need like a little nudge to go forward and take that leap of faith. The job that I have now, I literally got it from connections and a conversation. So I would just say, don't be afraid to ask people how they got where they are, what they did, why they're interested in what they're interested in. Because I feel like that is so beneficial to help see the real side of people and not just to see like where they are right now at this very moment, to see kind of how they got there. Because I feel like you can really see that in yourself too. Like, oh, okay, they just definitely, I won't do exactly that, but man, that's encouraging, so I would definitely say that.
Okay. It's great feedback. So now I wanted to just open up the floor for any questions that you may have for Maya, based on, the talk that we just had. So you can drop the questions in the chat, or you can come off mute and have a one-on-one conversation with Maya.
Hi, Maya. My name is Megan. I put a question in the chat, but we're here. So, wanted to ask you about your journey and like any engineers that supported your growth, and how did those relationships start for you?
You said so other engineers.
If there was other engineers or anybody else that helped supported your growth along that way, and what would be your advice for reaching out for those folks that helped you along your journey?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, I joined that when I was in college, and I joined it later than I probably should have, but man, just that network of other people that are right there with you, other Black engineers, other people that are going through these classes, you just have that support system with you. And like the conferences that we went on to, they were so much fun. And then like they were so like informative too. I feel like just, at UK, we had a really tight knit group through NSBE. And so just being able to either study with each other or just lean on each other with like the frustrations that we had, and just knowing that you have somebody else that could really like help you or really understand what you're going through, was so helpful in undergrad.
Thank you, Megan. It's a great question. What's the process of getting, involved with NSBE? Is it like it's an application process?
Yeah, so, that's a good question. I don't know if I know the exact answer, but I know that I got affiliated with the chapter at the University of Kentucky, through a friend. So, most schools have a chapter of NSBE, and if it's not at the school, it might be, in the city, a chapter of NSBE. So, I got involved with, seeing the brown face in the room, like, hey, how you doing? So, that's kind of how that started for me.
Okay. We have a question from Nicole. Do you have any advice on project management tools to use?
Ooh. So I'm still very new at learning a lot of the things that my company actually uses. But man, that's a good question. I don't know if I have any specific tools that I really like to use. My team has been using Mondays, which has been, we're new to it, but that's been pretty effective so far. But that's mostly just for updates and not as much as like the full-on scheduling side. But our project managers at my company, they use the Microsoft Project a lot. But we're also transitioning a lot of our systems too. So it's kind of hard to say because I haven't had much hands-on experience with any of the newer, I guess, technologies.
I don't know if this changed your answer, but she also added for enterprise-wide projects, not so much individual.
Ooh, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. But if anybody else knows, throw it in the chat.
All right. We have a question from Lanessa. Were there any hindrance in your career path specific to dealing with overcoming stereotypes or ideas of what you are capable of? And any advice for women on similar paths?
Ooh, yeah. So when I first got to my company, we don't have a lot of diversity in age either at my company. So I was young, I was woman, I was brown, and I'm in a small town. So I had moved, across out to Wisconsin in this small town. And so first of all, just assimilating to like the area, for one. For two, I had a lot of imposter syndrome. So for those that don't know, it's just not, fully being able to fully really understanding and feeling equipped to do the job that you are given. So I had a lot of imposter syndrome when I first got to my company, and dealing with a lot of people that are, to me at that age, were like dad age. So I'm like working with a lot of what I would call like a friend's dad or something like that. So I doubted myself a lot. I was not very secure in like my thoughts. So even though if I knew something was right, I was always really hesitant to say something. So that was something that I had to overcome. And I had a coworker who's an older guy, and he's a person of color, and he really helped and encouraged me to just be confident in like what I had to say, because what I had to say was valuable. And he was like, and even if you're wrong, like they do it all the time. He's like, they say whatever they want all the time, and they're just 100% wrong. So go in there, if you know you're right, go in there and just say what you have to say. And so, that was really helpful for me. And I think and that's another point of it, of having diversity in a company, because I think as a person of color, he was able to understand like that was a barrier that I was facing. But man, that's definitely something. I've gotten talks, not necessarily sometimes at my company, but sometimes outside too, of like my hair. Like, oh, we're meeting with customers, like, oh, do your hair. I'm like, my hair's done, child. Okay. So like, so there's little things like that I'm like, it just, sometimes it kind of hits you the wrong way. It's not ill intention, but it's just those little battles that you have. there's other things too. There's a lot that I could go into, but I feel like that first example is like a good one that really helped me kind of get that courage back.
Great question, great answer. So we have another question from T. Pfeiffer, I believe. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Has your confidence grown with your work experience?
100%, definitely. I think that especially coming in right after undergrad, and still being at my current company, I've been able to learn a lot for one. I work with a lot of really smart people, so I've been able to learn a lot from them, and just my confidence in general of in myself, kind of that what I was talking about earlier. Just starting off being very like insecure in like the answers that I would come up with, where there's like this problem, and it's like, well, I think this is what the issue is after going through it, but I'm not sure. To now, I feel so much more confident in being able to say, here are two solutions, A and B, and this is what I think that we should pursue to have the most effective outcome. I'm a lot more confident in being able to do that, whereas before I was not. So that is something that, like, I do wish somebody would have said to me that's going to be like a learning process for new employees or new people of color, that it could be something that you go through as this imposter syndrome, and that it's not that it's okay, but it's normal to go through that. But as long as you can get out of it, that's the good part. As long as you can get out of it, then you'll be good.
Thank you. We have another question from B. Welch. Are you considering PMI now that you have your MBA and are interested in program management? Great networking and knowledge resource.
I am. If you got some info, put it in the chat for me. But I definitely am. I had a professor that I talked with, and she really suggested it. So I'm going to start getting more information on that.
What is PMI, if you don't mind?
Project Management Institute, I believe, is what it is. But basically, so to be a project manager, you can take your PMP certificate, and that's one of my goals. So one of my professors really suggested joining the PMI group to help with all of that, like studying and all the course material for that test.
So I'm sorry. This is Brian. This is Brian Welch. I've found the PMI to be extremely valuable, not only from the networking perspective, but if you're into program management, it gives you a kind of a framework to understand business and overall project management. What is a project? How do you execute? It's a standard framework. It's the test is difficult. It's a little bit of work to get there, but then they have local chapters that you can get engaged with and share ideas, and networking is really great. And so that's all. But yeah, if you're looking for more information, PMI.org, go there, and or even contact your professor who recommended it. I think I really enjoyed getting my PMI, but you have to recertify every 3 years and stuff like that. So it's an ongoing learning exercise as well, which I found very helpful.
Yeah,
thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Yep.
You have any other questions? I can hop in with one. Maya, I don't know if you already explained this, but how did you land your job with Fairbanks, Morse?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was in undergrad, I was in this, it was an engineering leadership course. So it was a lot of different people from different disciplines of engineering, and you had to apply and go through this interview process to get into it. And it was a 1 day a week course for a couple of hours, once a week course for a couple of hours. And we had different speakers come in. So all these speakers were previous UK grads, University of Kentucky grads, and they were, in their fields doing whatever job they had. So they come in and give us like a little presentation about, either who they are, or they all did something different. And I was at that point where I was talking about earlier, where I realized I didn't want to work as a food engineer. And I worked the day before, and then I had this class, and I'm just sitting in here really contemplating, like, what am I going to do with my life? Because I had that realization, and it was a rough evening for me, because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Mind you, this is like April, maybe right before graduation. So I was cutting it close. So I had no fear at this point. So I'm like, you know what? Graduation's coming up. I have no fear. We had the speaker that came in had like, most of the other speakers talked about their company and all this other stuff. And he really focused in on developing you as a person and all this other stuff. And I don't know if I was just emotional. I don't know. But the conversation that or the presentation that he had really, really spoke to me. So I talked with him afterwards, and now this is how I got my job. So he was the former CEO of Impro Industries, which is the umbrella company that my company used to be under. So I talked to him afterwards, and he's like, I want to connect you with somebody. And I ended up talking with who was the president of Fairbanks, and those conversations led to conversations with the engineers at Fairbanks, and here I am.
It all goes back to the advice you just gave about, networking and those connections. Those are key.
Yeah, and stepping out on the fear that you have too, because at that point I was just really unsure of what direction I wanted to go. So at that point I didn't really have much to lose, So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna shoot my shot, have this conversation, and just keep it real and see what happens.
Always works. Another question from Brian. You obviously have a high level of confidence. What would you recommend for young engineers who may not be as confident as you?
Ooh. So I feel like confidence in and of itself, for me has a lot to do with like a little bit of self-reflection. So for me, that's just I do find myself as a confident person, but I feel like I try and find someone that I can lean on and talk to that can help kind of give me that nudge. Because although I am confident, sometimes I sit in the fear that I have, and I sit in just kind of this what's the word I'm looking for? Like not stable. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but I sit in a complacent place where it's like, I'm doing okay, I'm doing all right, I'm doing good at this, I'm not doing bad. So I'm kind of sitting in that complacent place. And for me, I have a coworker that I have at my company who is a little bit older than I am, and I feel like that is a little bit of help for me whenever I need to either give myself like a, hey, like, can you tell me how I'm doing on this? Or can you tell me some things that I could work on? Just somebody that you can really look at that's, either in the same field as you. It might not necessarily have to be like another engineer, but just somebody that you can trust and confide in, and somebody that has a real look at, the work that you do, to be able to give you real-time feedback. And, some people can get that from like a supervisor or a boss during like a yearly like one-on-one, but I find it helpful to have someone outside of who I directly report to be able to get that kind of feedback. So I think that's what I would say, because even for me, it's you said that I have a high level of confidence. Like sometimes I wouldn't say the same. So I think that having that accountability, or having that somebody that's in your corner can help you. And then for me too, I like being able to be that person for other people. I think that's helpful if you do see something in someone, and you can see that they just need a little bit of encouragement, or a little bit of, whether it's reassurance or whatever it is. I think that can be helpful for anybody.
Another question, any thoughts on mentoring? Do you have a support network? Do you pay it back, or have any opportunities to mentor students or other engineers? So let's start with any thoughts on mentoring.
Yeah, so I love mentoring. the guy that I got my job from, or the guy that I initially talked to, I still keep in contact with. So I think mentoring is important just because it gives you a little bit of, it's sometimes you can get mentored from somebody that, like I was just saying, that like you work directly with, but you can also get mentorship from people either outside of your job or somebody that's been in your role before. But I think it's important to be able to kind of look and see, where they are, if it's somewhere that you want to go, to really be able to get real and ask them like how they got there, and like the steps that they took. So I think it's important just so, you can really dive into those type of questions and those like thought processes too. And then there was another part of it too, you said?
Do you have a support network? And it was, do you pay it back, or do you have any opportunities to mentor students or other engineers?
Yeah, so I don't really have the opportunity to mentor other engineers at the moment, but I am on the board at the Morse, Museum of Science and Technology here in Syracuse, and we're starting a STEM program there. So I have signed up to be a mentor for that. It just hasn't started yet. So I'm really excited about that. But as far as mentoring, at the moment, I don't, and I really want to get more into mentoring because I used to do a lot more volunteering and things like that. So that is something that I'm definitely interested in, and I think it's really important too.
Definitely. We have another question from Laura. More on the confidence building. Tell us how important it is for younger people / newer employees to speak up in meetings. What's the best way to be heard?
Ooh, child, that's hard. Because you've got to, man, I really, there's that barrier. And for me, I think that I'm shy. Other people won't say that I'm shy, but I feel like I'm shy sometimes. And that is another hindrance on like the fear that you have to speak up and say something. But from what I've learned, if you are down a path and this company has hired you, right? They have hired you because they see something in you. You have the skills that you have that you apply with or whatever. And so why not take that chance? The worst thing that they can say is, "You're wrong, boo," and then you'd be like, "Okay, all right." And then you just come back next time and try it again. So I think the biggest thing is the fear of saying something and having the humiliation factor, or not having, or feeling like you're wrong, like you have to have everything right. You step out and try, and if you fail, you get up and you try again. And that's how we learn in general, right? That's how we learn. That's how we succeed at things at life. But it's that fear, honestly, is the hardest part to get over, because you're equipped with this information. So it's just a matter of being able to take that step out. Another thing I will add to that too is, like, if you see opportunities where you could, if it's like present at work, or if you see opportunities where you see other people presenting, you can always reach out to them and ask them, like, "Hey, is there any opportunities that I could do X, Y, Z, or I could do a portion of your presentation just to get some practice?" When I was at a couple years, or maybe 2 years ago at work, I was part of a learning program, and we had a lot of presentations at work, and I despise presenting, but I feel like it was really, really helpful for me to be able to articulate exactly what I was, trying to present and trying to portray. So, yeah.
I think that's a good question, Maya. That's a great answer. Personally speaking, for me, I'm not a new employee here at Center State, but I'm pretty new. And in the beginning, I was really scared about public speaking and answering stuff during meetings and stuff like that. But I learned that when you prepare and you know what you're talking about, you're more confident in what you're saying. So that takes away a little bit of the fear. So as long as a younger employee or a younger person is prepared and knows exactly what he's saying when he is presenting, I think that definitely adds to his confidence. And then it's also the fear of, it's also the fear of, thinking your colleagues are going to say, you're not smart because you don't know something, but they're honestly not going to say that at all. That's just your perception. So just understand you can make mistakes, and it's okay. So that's a great question for sure. We have another question from Jerry. Hi, Maya. Not sure if this question was already asked, but do you have any books that have been pivotal in your growth as a young professional that you would recommend to young people?
Ooh, that's a good question. I haven't read many books here lately. School has been taking a lot of my time. I did, the book that I read that I really, really enjoyed was the Michelle Obama book. And I think just as my husband can tell you that I was reading this book and like, yes, Michelle, yes, Michelle, because there were just so many moments in there that I could see myself in what she was writing. Just as a young professional. So I feel like probably, I can't think of, is it Becoming? Yes, it's Becoming. I thought that book was great just because I could see myself in it so much. And I don't know if it would be as applicable to all, non-women, I guess, but as a woman, I loved reading that book.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Maya. Leticia has a question. What diversity and inclusion initiatives have you seen / experienced? Are they working? Have there been new and or more progressive initiatives implemented in the current social climate? Sorry if that question was already asked.
It was not asked, and I don't have an answer. So the sad thing, I feel like I think that's something that my company really needs to work on, is doing a lot more diversity and inclusion. At the company that I work at now, we do like the routine. I feel like it's the bare minimum. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer. But that is an answer. That's an answer. But that's all I got.
Thanks, Leticia. Shamin, do you have any podcasts that you listen to that you would recommend?
Hey, Shamin. We went to school together. That's one of my best friends. So I love The Daily, the New York Times podcast. That's one that I probably listen to the most frequent. There are a couple others that I can't think of that I haven't listened to in a while, but I like The Daily because it's short. It's 30 minutes. You get a really good snippet of what's going on in the world. There's another one that I was listening to. I think it's called Church and Politics. It's through the AND campaign. But that one's been, so as a Christian, I really like the perspective that they have on politics in the world and what that looks like, and what that looks like, from the perspective of a person of color too. So those are the two that I probably listen to the most. And there are others that I just can't think of right now.
We have time for about 2-3 more questions. So if you got any last minute questions, you can drop them in the chat or ask Maya. Two people had the same question, Leticia and I can't pronounce. Two people had the same questions.
I see.
What's next?
So definitely my PNP certificate. That's one of my next goals, personal goals. And it's really hard to say. So I really enjoy project management, and I think that that's going to be my next leap, or even like a project engineering role that has a little bit more heavy project management responsibilities to it. And although that is what I'm working in right now, I really like it. I really do, and I think that continued education, even though the PMP is something that you have continued education for. I'm for it. I like learning. Like I already said, I'm a nerd, so I think that those are my immediate next steps. I'm also trying to get another dog. So if any of you know my husband, please tell him that we need another dog. Yeah, that's it.
Do you have, just to piggyback off of that, do you have any like entrepreneurial entrepreneur like goals? Do you want to like venture off into entrepreneurship?
I have some ideas that are still very, very fresh and in my mind. STEM related. So lots of STEM and kind of what we talked about earlier of how do we get younger kids engaged with STEM more STEM programming. So that's something that I've actually been thinking about for a while, but I've actually put a lot more thought into here recently. So it's still really fresh, but yeah, that's what I'm looking for, looking in those type of opportunities.
$1 million ideas.
All up in here.
All right. Any last minute questions? Okay, if not, I'm going to drop the link to the survey in the chat. When you get a chance, please go to that link and just provide us feedback on what you learned today, your experience in tech, because we'll make sure it's implemented in all of our programming and events in the future. Thank you for joining us in the Diversity and Women in Tech event. Let me share the screen one more time. Sorry. Sorry, we have I can't find it. It's fine. But if you have any questions, you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us on Generation Next at centerstateceo.com. And also you can visit the Center State CEO website to watch, rewatch this event. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, everyone who came and participated and asked wonderful questions. And we'll see you all next year.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Coming. Appreciate it.